Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to talk about how you can use this big guy right here to catch more walleyes this fall. I just got back from a trip up to Rainy Lake with Donnie O'Bert and Charlie Peterson, and we got into a good mess of walleyes with the number 5 Puppet Minnow, specifically in colors that mimic smelt. So this right here is glow white, and yeah, it was a really cool program. The way Donnie fishes up there is he covers a lot of water, just contacting as many hungry fishes as he can. But without further ado, I'm gonna pass it off to Donnie, and he's gonna explain his system.
Okay, so we're really using a run and gun technique today. We have relatively calm water, so we can't sit on any pot of fish any too long. So right now, if you look at my graph, I'm skirting around the edge of this structure, this deeper edge, rock, deeper mud, and you can see we came out over that edge and, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, now I stopped moving the boat here, so that one's right under the boat, been there for 30 seconds or so. So we're gonna get set up, we're gonna spot lock probably right on this transition, and we're gonna rip these puppet minnows straight up and down, see if we can't snap a few of these. Okay, so we're just sliding around the base of the structure where rock turns into mud with these puppet minnows, and marked a real good pot of fish, and that's a pretty nice fish right there. Marked a nice pot of fish, and my trolling motor was down, so that made it real easy to just hit the brakes, back up, sit right on top of the fish. And Charles popped a nice 20-inch fish there, 21-inch fish. Beautiful walleye. It's a beautiful Rainy Lake walleye.
It's gonna be a better one.
That's better. Not a giant, but It's better.
He's just hooked funky.
Yep.
There we go. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
They're all heavy when they come in sideways.
Yeah, that doesn't help, does it?
Nope.
I was kind of hoping we'd have a special one, but
look,
this is pretty special to me.
Look at how fat that thing is.
Parker.
Sweet little split in the dorsal there.
Yeah.
Real unique looking.
We've kind of just been running and gunning. And one thing that's been interesting, we just pulled up to this spot. We've been jigging it for like 2 minutes, and we hooked up. And that's one thing Donnie has said has kind of been a pattern with what he's had going on, is like fishing anywhere for too long, like either, you know, the fish that are there, and either they're gonna bite or they're not, especially when you're using a presentation like this where you're just putting it in front of their face, and you know, you don't have to snap it in front of their face for 5 minutes to get them to bite. It's either gonna happen or it's not gonna happen. So that's kind of been the program, right, Donnie?
That's it.
That's it. Yep. So we're gonna
mark them, catch them, move on. Mark them, catch them, move on.
Yeah. So that's the strategy. We're gonna do more of that. Now, one thing I mentioned at the top of this video, one thing that's really critical for Donnie is the fact that he's matching the hatch and imitating the forage that he has going on. That's why we're using these big baits that are white, because they got a lot of smelt up there. But I'm gonna pass it off to Donnie, and he's gonna really show just how impressive the whole match the hatch deal is with these baits.
So what's the one phrase you hear all the time when you're studying up on fishing is match the hatch, right? That's it's a phrase that's been around since the beginning of fishing. There's a reason for that, right? So the closer we can match what's happening under the water, the better our chances of getting a predator to eat. So here we've got a smelt that was puked up by one of our walleyes. This is the natural prey in the waters we're fishing today in this system. So you can see how closely the puppet minnow mimics real life. Depending on how much light you have penetrating, today we have high sun, bluebird skies, so a lot of light is penetrating, so I want to use that little bit more of a chromey color there. If it were more overcast, cloudy, or a little bit of wind, I would want to use the white or a little bit of a glow just to get those walleyes' attention a little better. But as far as size and profile, that's almost a perfect match to what these walleyes are already eating.
Next up, Donnie's gonna explain why he likes to use the aggressive puppening tactic to target these fish.
Well, that sounds like it's a little better fish.
This one's pulling some drag.
Yeah. This puppet minnow bite it's been a pretty solid bite up here. Usually, you know, at the first, second week of July, right on through ice up. You know, it's a real consistent producer. It's a nice fish. It's gonna be a slot fish for us, I believe. Over 17 3/4, be real close. Oh no, that's probably a box fish for us. Where we're targeting the fish in this specific body of water, our fish feed in the deep, and we are targeting fish where they're actually just laid up and resting, you know. So we have to actually trigger that bite. It has to be a reaction bite. I've had a lot of days in the boat where I have an older individual with some younger individuals, and I've had 2 people in the boat running Puppet Minnows, and I'll put the older individual with a jig and a minnow, and the jig and minnow does not get bit. These fish they're full. Where they're sitting here, they're resting, they're full, they don't want to eat. But if you keep bouncing that puppet minnow in front of them, it's such an instinctual that it's almost like they can't resist it. You know, you bounce it enough times, they're gonna eat it. So that's I think what separates the fish that we're targeting from fish that you would target, say, in a different part of the season with a jig and a minnow that are actively feeding. This is a technique that will catch fish when they're not active, negative or neutral.
Great. And how did you make the water do that? It's so flat and beautiful.
Yeah, that's
Now Donnie's gonna break down his rod and line setup that he likes to use when he's ripping puppet minnows.
So when I'm running puppet minnows, I like to have a rod with a little bit softer tip, a little bit slower action. I found that rods with a real fast action that get to the backbone really quickly, you dump a lot of fish. The bite is so aggressive that a lot of times if you have a fast action rod, you'll actually rip the bait right out of their mouth more often than not. So a little bit softer tip, a little bit moderate, more action on your rod will allow those fish to stay hooked up long enough to get them in the net. I also prefer to run braid on any of my glide bait rods. I think the added sensitivity and the no stretch. I also use a fluorocarbon leader. I personally use a uni to uni knot to connect the two because customers will reel a barrel swivel into the end eyelet and break it. So I like a uni to uni knot. I use 10-pound test, and actually I use 20-pound leaders because we get bit off by pike a lot. So I like a little added protection. It can help me keep my investment a little longer.
The next topic that we're gonna go over is jigging cadence. And jigging cadence is extremely important because if you're not working these baits at least somewhat correctly, you're not gonna catch any fish.
So one thing I like to keep in mind when I'm using puppet minnows is different days the fish kind of want a different cadence. I found this out by always fishing with customers, and everybody fishes them a little bit differently. So I've had days where a guy that is giving it, you know, massive swings is getting hit, and I've had days where little grandma is just giving her a flick and it's getting hit. And it seems like on any given day, one cadence will be the trigger more than anything else. So don't be afraid to mix it up or have different people in the boat swinging a little bit different cadence. So last couple of days up here for me, it's been best to let it hit the bottom. Our fishery doesn't have zebra mussels, so we can let it hit the bottom. I know there are some places where hitting the bottom is catastrophic, but up here I like to let it hit the bottom and give it a rip, and then I actually kind of catch it on the way down and give it what I would call a controlled descent. I don't like to just let it crash into the bottom for a couple of reasons. You almost always bend the nose hook. 2, big fish typically hit it on the drop. Little fish, eater-sized fish, they've almost always got it pinned to the bottom. So on your next stroke, it's just there. Big fish almost always hit it on the way down, which has always been kind of fascinating to me because that thing is falling incredibly fast. So don't be afraid to mix up your cadence a little bit and see what those fish want. Super critical. Another good tip for not wrapping your rod tip, I always tell customers, cut the boat in half. Right, so if we go cut the boat in half, and we always pitch out at 180 degrees to the back of the boat. Spot lock's gonna put your nose in the wind. So if you're always casting straight out or back, the wind is gonna blow that slack away from your rod tip, and you'll wrap that rod tip way less.
Now, one thing that you'll notice about this bait is walleyes have the tendency to pin it down against the bottom. I'm not sure if that's maybe because it's got such an erratic action as you're ripping it, but it's something that you'll definitely see, and that's one of the reasons why I like to crash this bait down into the bottom versus just stopping it just like a foot or two before the bottom and letting it pendulum before ripping it again. So anyway, Donnie's gonna show how that can happen in real life.
Another, you look at that little rocket. Good grief.
They got a good attitude.
Yeah, angry. Sorry, buddy. You were there for the assist. So that's a good example right there of a walleye that pinned that bait to the bottom. So a lot of times smaller eater size fish, they really just want to look at it. So what they'll do is as you're ripping it, they just pin it to the bottom with their chin so they can get a good look at actually what it is. They're interested, but you do catch an awful lot of them under the chin, not even in the mouth. But it raises their curiosity. Look at that little chunker. Good Lord, that's a 14-inch fish. Cute.
That's about all we got for you in this video. The puppet minnow bite can be really good during the summer months, but for me, it gets better and better as we get into fall. So something to consider, something to have in your arsenal. And if you enjoyed this video and you learned something, make sure to hit that little red subscribe button down below, because we have a lot more content coming in the months ahead. And until then, we'll see you in the next one.